we are going to go over the top 3 business mistakes that authors and writers make and how we're going to fix them. Because what's really the point of talking about something if we don't have an actual way to fix them? So if you're wondering, well, is this training for me? Is this something that's going to actually help me? Is this something that is going to be useful? Well, then you may be thinking some of these things and ask yourself this: what is your end game? What is your ultimate goal? And I don't mean just like, oh, I want to publish a book. Why are you doing this? What is your purpose in doing this? So is it enough to be able to make enough money to go from working full-time outside of the home to part-time outside of the home? Do you want to see your book at Barnes and Noble on the shelf? Do you want to be able to sell 100 books in 1 year? Is that your goal? I want to sell 100 books in 1 year. More than that, great, but this is my goal. Do you want to earn enough to buy a new laptop to write on? That's one that I see a lot where people say, I'd love to, but this 10-year-old laptop that I have is just really, it deletes all my stuff, and I can't really trust it. So is that a goal where you need to get to that point to where you can afford to buy a new laptop? Do you want to be able to tell people, I'm a published author? If that is part of your goal, something that you have dreamed of for a long time, where you want to be able to say, I am a published author, is that your end game goal? Or maybe this is the one that all of us have as a dream, is to achieve your dream of writing for a living. And I think, again, that's one that a lot of us have, the idea of being able to do something that we love so very much and to be able to do that for a living. So from here, what I want you to do, and very, very honestly look at yourself and ask yourself, how badly do you want that goal? Do you kind of want it? Like, yeah, I would kind of, yeah, I'd like to get a new laptop. That'd be cool. Sorta, yeah, sure, that'd be great. If I could, sell 100 books in 1 year, that'd be nice. Or it would be nice to be, shoot, yeah, if I could just work part-time instead of full-time at my day job. Or is this something that is your goal? This is your dream. This is your plan. This is what you want to do. And you just need to know how to reach it. And this is a big difference that I've seen in some of the people that went through the beta launch of this program and other authors that I've worked with on a one-to-one basis. They do tend to end up in one of these two camps where, yeah, this would be nice. That'd be cool. I'd like that. Or no, this is what I need to do. How do I get there? And there is a big difference between the two. So who is this training for? If you're sick of not making any sales progress, no matter what you do, how much you try everything that everybody tells you you're supposed to do, and you're still not seeing any kind of improvement or progress. If you're open to suggestions and trying new tactics and guidance, this is a big one. We all get kind of stuck in our ways, and we don't necessarily want to try something that's uncomfortable or new or scary. You do need to be open to suggestions. If someone tells you, hey, doing this one thing, I know it seems really, really scary, but if you try it, I think you'll be kind of excited about the results that you get. Writers who are willing to do the work to achieve their goals, you really do need to put in the work. Nobody's going to do it for you. And if you have the ultimate goal of being a professional writer, but that is however you define it. So not everyone's goal of being a professional writer is, oh, this is going to be my full-time job. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to have movies made out of my books. That is not everyone's goal. And so it's whatever goal that you have, whatever it is, and you want to reach that. Who is this not for? If you want to be one of those people who is just handed those magic beans and you're going to get to just plant them, and the next day you wake up and you are a best-selling author with a movie deal in the works, this training is not for you. If you are looking for the secret route or secret entrance to skip the unsexy stuff, which is the hard work, the hours of editing, getting feedback from people that maybe is honestly a little bit hurtful. Maybe they have a point, but still, this is our baby. But you're willing to take it in. But if you're, no, I don't want to hear any of that. This is what I want. Get me from point A to point Z. I want to skip all that stuff in the middle. This training is not for you. If you're not open to those suggestions or change or anything like that, again, that's how you change, that's how you improve, is by acting on the suggestions that are given to you. If you feel that you are just so much busier than everyone else, you have it so much harder than everybody else, you just don't have time to implement any action items. This is actually something that I hear more when people hear that I knit. I love knitting. I knit socks, I knit lace, I knit sweaters, I knit everything. And I can't even tell you how many times people have said, wow, I'd love to do that, but I just don't have the time to do that. Yeah, you do. Sit in front of the television during lunch at work, get up a half hour earlier in the morning. Same goes for writing. So for people that just feel that, oh, I just don't have the time to do that, they really just aren't willing to make the time to do that. And then the big one is for people who are looking for just those big, huge, full-time, immediate results without putting in the commitment or work. There's always going to be a catch somewhere. When somebody tells you, hey, guess what? You're going to be able to do this and you're not going to have to do anything. Wake up tomorrow morning and it's done. It's not going to happen unless you have some other connections with some Hollywood agents or famous people. It's just not going to happen. You yourself have to put in the commitment and the work to see this happen. So some of you may have heard of garbage in, garbage out. It's not just about computer science where putting in crappy code results in a program that doesn't work. This applies to pretty much anything in life. So if you take one of those shortcuts, you are probably not going to be too super happy about the results that you get because you don't put in the quality on the front end that results in the excellent quality on the back end. So right now, today, my promise is number one, I will deliver as much value as humanly possible in this session. In my day job, I am a trainer, I am a coach, and I take this very, very seriously. I don't believe in giving half-ass trainings. I don't think that that is being respectful of you or your time or your trust. So I promise you, I'm going to give you as much as I can just in this one session or any future sessions. I'm going to share some real examples of how the method that you're going to be learning today can work. And it's all theory, or excuse me, no theory, it's all proof. These are things that have been tested and work. You're going to come away with 3 action items at the end of the take, and I'm going to send you in the direction of additional resources that help you keep growing. I also like to be very, very available to the people that I coach. And so if you and I are speaking about something that you're working on and I find out about a resource 2 weeks, I feel will help you individually, not the entire class, I'm going to send it your way. So all I ask in return is if you are watching, just please close out anything else that you might have going on, Netflix, a chat, whatever it might be on your computer, to just pay attention and really be engaged and involved and avoid distractions. I'm not going to ask you to turn off your cell phone, but if you could turn off the alerts or turn it over or keep it on silent, so again, you're able to really concentrate, that would be great. And I've asked too is that you treat this and your time, the other learners' time, my time, as an important business meeting about your future. Otherwise, if it's just kind of like, yeah, I sat through it and I learned some stuff, and would that be a business meeting that you would see in your professional day job life? No, you're going to come in with an agenda and an objective and plans and takeaways, and that's what we're going to do tonight as well. So today you are going to learn to identify the three big things. And yes, there are more than three, but the three things that I've really identified are what hold back authors and writers. They're going to be things that aren't super hyper focused. So for example, one of those three things is not going to be, hey, remember to pay your taxes. I'm trusting that you're going to remember to pay your taxes. That's something that's so very specific that that's just part of a much bigger thing that you need to address, or if you haven't addressed it, is a problem that you need to address. So what we're going to be talking about are not the micro things, but much more macro things that help you look at your career and your dreams and your hopes to be a professional author or writer. So why? Why are those three things keeping you from selling as many books or reaching your goals? Why are we here? What is Kate going to tell us? Can you redesign your approach, your attitude, your mentality to being a professional author or writer? And then at the end, I am going to share a peek at the framework that I've set up. That's Author Iceberg, which is about pulling everything together. So this is the masterclass. This is kind of just the first step to say, okay, there were things I never thought about. There were things that I needed people to point out to me. There were things that I just needed spelled out. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I'm going to tell you about the full-sized course. So a little bit about me. I have been a professional indie author since 2009, and that is by choice. I have made a very deliberate decision that I want to be an indie author. Right now, my primary genres are writing female spy and private investigation thrillers, where we have a very strong female protagonist. I absolutely love it, love doing the research, love everything about it. I formed Twin Type Books LLC in 2014, and that was a part of my goal and my challenge to myself about being a professional author. I wanted to hold myself accountable, and I wanted other people to take me seriously as well. I've been teaching adults full-time for over 6 years in terms of a career. As I mentioned, my day job is as a trainer and coach. So I do this professionally. This isn't something where I'm just gonna wing some advice at you and tell you to check back in with me in, a couple of weeks or something like that. If you look at my bio anywhere, this is part of my brand, actually. I always like to say that I'm fueled by sushi and dreams. I love sushi. I eat it once a week. I always get sushi for lunch on Friday. And when it comes to my dreams, I tell people I do dream in color and sound and smell and in great detail, which is wonderful when it turns out to be a great book idea. Not so wonderful when it's about zombies chasing you and your family, because that's like being in a horror movie starring you and your family. But I do have incredibly vivid dreams, and I've gotten so many ideas that I have been able to transform into the written word from those. And then lastly, I am 100% team pantser. I know that some of you're going to know exactly what I mean by that. I don't plot, and that's okay. Some people like to work with plots. They like to have everything plotted out in advance. I can't. I cannot work with a plot. I absolutely just sit down and I get myself in the right headspace, and then I just let her rip and I start writing. And that is what works for me. So that's another good example of you need to define and make your own goals about what is being a professional author or writer. So let's see the bumps along the way. So over on the left-hand side, I have in the Pistols series, which is the series that I am currently working on, the second book launch, which was the book called Pistols. The second book of the series is called Pistols. That launch flopped big time. And it was due to me just kind of surfing on what had worked before. I didn't keep up with what was working now, a year later. This was me just saying, well, this is what worked last time and it worked great. And I sold a bunch of books. So I'm going to do the same thing. The industry is constantly changing. The way that it's just changed even since 2009 or since 2014 is mind boggling. And so me and my, thinking I'm that awesome that I didn't need to keep up with the industry trends, that resulted in a book launch which did not go over well. And if your book launch doesn't go over well, you really have to work so much harder to get back, as opposed to doing it correctly and well and up to date the first time and doing a really great successful book launch. I also 100%, because I'm not going to ask you to ever share anything about yourself that I'm not willing to share myself, I am the poster child for procrastination paralysis. I am the worst procrastinator. I have been forever. I have to write things down. I have to put things on my phone. I have to put sticky notes. I have to tell my husband, hey, make sure you ask me if I did this tonight, because I am just such a procrastinator. And when it comes to something like this, where especially as an indie author, you may not know all of the ins and the outs and everything like that, I definitely at first was like, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist, and maybe it'll go away and I'll have a wonderful, successful book launch. Yeah, no, absolutely not. So I have definitely found a way to deal with my procrastination and my tendencies for that, because I definitely saw the bad things that come from that. I have also paid for a few multi-thousand-dollar courses that ended up really not being the right fit for me, and therefore they were not even relevant. So I have paid for courses that basically at the end of the day told you, oh, just go in and write a book recycling this material and telling everybody how to make thousands of dollars launching their books. And I'm thinking to myself after the fact, but, I'm a fiction writer. I don't want to write about telling other people how to write a book to make thousands of dollars. And you can kind of see where that went. They were offering those magic beans and I bought them. And my moment of clarity really did come. That was a slap in the face that really woke me up and said, no, I need to take a different way, a different approach. Was I maxed out my credit cards because I had invested in 3 Magic Beans offers that I thought were going to be, wake up tomorrow morning and I've sold 5,000 books, and I maxed out my credit cards doing that. And that was definitely my moment of clarity, where I thought, I can't even pay the minimum payment on this credit card with my book sales. And that was when that light bulb really just switched on in my head. So to give you a real example, because I don't really like just telling you things, I like to give you proof. This is a screenshot from my KDP author dashboard. So from my Amazon author dashboard. And this was when I was running Amazon ads. And as you can see here, I spent almost $5,300 on Amazon advertising. And it was for my lead magnet. A lead magnet is something that you put out there to basically get people interested in your books and get them invested. But the thing is, my lead magnet is free. The ebook is free. You can buy the paperback, but the download is free. So I spent almost $5,300 on ads and only saw a tangible $125.79 in sales from orders of the paperback. Now, did some people read the lead magnet, the free ebook, and then come back and bought some of the books that were for sale that were not free? Absolutely. But I don't have any way to prove that. And so I actually have this graphic right here printed out and stuck to my computer monitor as a reminder that even though I want to be passionate, I want to get it out there, I want to get the ball rolling, I have to do it smart and I have to do it in a business-like manner. So I like to think I learned my lesson from that. I'm still learning lessons. I'm not saying I know everything, but that was a major lesson. So this is why we're sitting here today. This is why I'm talking to you. It's because I feel very passionately about helping authors and writers learn how to treat yourselves as professionals without all the crap that I put myself through, that I talked myself through, that I convinced myself through, that I spent a lot of money through. I'm very passionate about that. And this is why I very strongly will ask people if they're saying, oh, my book isn't selling. I'm a doer, I'm a fixer. My first question is going to be, well, what are you doing? What kind of promotions are you doing? What do you think? Where's the biggest money drain? This is what I love to do, is to help authors sell more books, which in return is an investment back in themselves and will get you back to that ultimate goal that you have set for yourself. All right, so let's get into the actual 3 mistakes. So like I mentioned in the title, there are 3 big macro mistakes that I really and truly feel are the ones that all other mistakes, especially and specifically for authors and writers, come from. So, mistake number 1, lack of identity. What does lack of identity mean? Why did I make this a macro mistake, a big mistake? What does it mean? So, despite your desire to sell books, to be successful, a lot of writers just don't view themselves as professionals. They don't look at themselves as being a professional or as being a business. They look at themselves as just being a creative artist, which is perfectly fine. And I do not dispute that. I like to look at myself as a creative artist as well. But from the moment you start making money, you are also a business. If it's not even in your eyes, it will probably definitely be in the government's eyes or in the IRS's eyes or something like that. The wish or the plan to succeed as a writer is there, but the actions that you're taking are those of a hobbyist. So you want to, that's what your dream, your goal is to be a full-time writer. But well, what are you doing to make that an actual reality? Are you going through and have you set up a separate bank account specifically for yourself as a writer? Do you have a website? Do you have business cards? And yes, writers should absolutely have business cards. I actually managed to end up in 2 different book clubs because of business cards, where my business card had been given out to someone. But if the actions that you take are just a hobbyist, where you're like, well, I've got my books, I've got a Facebook page, if somebody wants to like message me or something, I can send them a book. I don't really get Amazon. It's kind of scary. They got this whole KDP dashboard thing. So I'm just, if somebody wants to buy a book, they can just, reach out to me on my Facebook page. And number three, just ignorance of what treating yourself as a professional business entails. We'll get more into this as well in a little bit, but just that whole, well, what does that mean? I've always worked throughout my professional life. I've always worked for a company where there was an HR department and a legal department, and they took care of all that stuff. What I wouldn't even know where to start to make myself a legal professional business entity. So, what happens if you keep making this mistake? So, one, this is I phrase this a different way. This is where some of my tough love comes in. You're not going to be taken seriously by other people who could otherwise help you. And the way that I phrase it, and I've put this on my blog, I've put this on my social media, I've said this to people, if you don't take yourself seriously, why should I? If there's a bookstore that does like to support indie authors, why should they take you seriously? You just kind of wandered in and said, "Hey, I wrote a book. Will you like sell it and give me some money?" So this is a big one that I tell people all the time. If you don't take yourself seriously, why should anybody else? You are not going to be able to take advantage of all of the benefits that actual businesses have available to them. So, tax breaks, write offs, even down to, and this is just more of an example as opposed to something specific, this year in the US, where we saw and what was put out as small business loans due to the pandemic. If you can't prove that you're an actual business that has actually suffered and lost business due to something, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a pandemic, then you're not going to be able to take advantage of things that could help you otherwise. So, a personal example for me was there is a website called Free Booksy, and they essentially, if you have a book that is free or you're willing to put it as free for a certain amount of time, you can run a promotion with them. It's a wonderful website. Absolutely love them. I know about them even before anything happened, but they put out a promotion that said if you have been, as an author, have been negatively impacted by you couldn't do any kind of book festivals or book shows or signings or anything after the quarantine, then let us know and we'll actually do the promotion that we normally charge X amount of dollars for free. Because we want to help authors. And because I was able to demonstrate with hard receipts and numbers that I had already bought my entire year's worth of inventory that I planned on selling this year and now I couldn't do, I was able to provide that to them. And so I was able to get a free promotion, which actually was a huge, enormous, amazing boost to my business and my sales. You will also, if you continue making this mistake, you're going to be unprepared when others do assume that you are acting as a professional business because you're doing things that a professional business should be doing. And the IRS is definitely one of those. Here in the US, the IRS is somebody you do not want to get a letter from or a phone call from because they're pretty much wanting to either possibly audit you or get some money out of you that you did not pay. And so they're on their side saying, well, you're making money. You're selling on Amazon. Amazon reported to us that you had just a number, $10,000 in sales last year. So let's talk about why you didn't report that in any kind of tax return. Cassie is an author that I actually had a great discussion with on my Instagram. And we were talking about this exact thing. And she actually put this in as a response on my Instagram. And I asked for her permission to put it on here because it was just so right on the nose. So she said, when I finally put author on my resume and I listed out the accomplishments that go with it, my mentor, who is a banker, was like, well, why wasn't it there in the first place? I was worried that future employers would think I wasn't committed to my quote unquote day job because I was also an author. But it turns out it's one of the things that got potential employers' attention. And if you think about that, especially the way she spelled this out just so beautifully, that's so true because being, especially if you are an indie author, you are your HR department, you are your finance department, your legal department. You are also basically doing two full-time jobs and doing them successfully. And so it wasn't a knock against her. It wasn't a negative. She actually said, no, this was something that they were really impressed with, to be perfectly honest. So this is going to be your first action item. So just make sure that you got a pen and paper or just something to type on. This is the first of the three action items that I promised you. What you're going to do, not right now, but maybe this weekend or when you have a moment, I want you to set a timer for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, no more, no less, and just brainstorm, completely just brainstorm, free association. What being a professional author or writer means to you. I don't care about complete sentences. I don't care if it's spelled correctly. I don't care if it's grammatically correct. Just dump it out there. What does that mean to you? What is your idea of meeting that final goal of being a professional author? What is it? If you've already thought about it, then go ahead and also jot down what your legal identity would be. So do you see yourself as just being a sole proprietor where you are the business and the business is you? Lots of authors take that route. An LLC, which is the route I took just because I knew that I was going to be doing a lot of things other than just doing books. And so I wanted to make sure that I had a business that covered all of these other routes, including the coaching. If you have no clue about what kind of legal identity you want to have now or in the future, well, then just jot down, I have no clue and I need to learn about this. That's totally fine. So is this going to be all you? Are you planning on writing with someone else? There was a point in my career where I was planning to write with someone else. And she and I co-wrote the second book of the series together. In that case, you're going to definitely want to have a legal structure that is going to divvy up the profits and figure out, okay, come tax time, how are we going to do that? Do you want to have a pen name or a pseudonym? Which again is completely up to you, especially if you want to write in really different genres or try things out. The other reason that I definitely hear from people is I don't really want, I'm not ashamed of it, but I don't really want my coworkers reading my book. Maybe it's like steamy romances or erotica or something like that, which is perfectly fine. And if you don't want your coworkers to read that, then do you want to have a pen name? And if so, what are you thinking about for your pen name? How would you like for people to introduce you at parties? So when you're introduced to someone, do you want them to say, oh, this is my friend Kate. Yeah, she works downtown with me. Or do you want them to say, this is my friend Kate. She works with me, but do you know she's also a published author? Which, because I've pushed it so much on my end, where that's how I do introduce myself is, oh, I actually honestly lead with that. I'm a published author, and people will follow your lead and introduce you that way. And what do you want people to associate with you? Do you want people, when they think of or hear your name or your pen name, do you want them to think automatically, oh my God, yeah, she was that author. I met her last year at that one book festival. Oh my gosh, I remember talking to her for like 30 minutes and she writes this spot and so on and so on and so forth. So just take 10 minutes. And again, don't do any more than that. Just literally take 10 minutes and just do a giant brain dump. Don't think about it too much. Just write down everything that you can think of that is related to who you are or who you want to be as a professional author or writer. Because when you have identified what you want to be or be regarded as or associated with, then that's how you start getting other people to also regard you as and associate you with. So that is action item number 1. Mistake number 2. So when I first started working on the Author Iceberg, which is the name of the full program about the business side of being an author or a writer, I did a survey, and I just put it out there. It wasn't just of my friends or my peers or the people. It was a survey I put out there for any author in the entire world to take this survey, and said, what is holding you back from taking, especially, not exclusively, but especially if you're an indie author, what's holding you back from really just saying, I'm a professional author. This is partially what I do for a living. I have 2 full-time jobs, and one of them is as a professional author. And mistakes number 2 and number 3 were literally number 1 and number 2 of what all of the responses came in. And it wasn't even that I was feeding people those words and saying, oh, is overwhelm one of them? This was people typing it out, and that I was able to look at and say, oh, all of these answers boil down to this thing. So mistake number 2 is overwhelm. And what does this mean for us? There's just so much to learn, to remember, to do. And I'm kind of busy. I'm really busy, actually. I still have a full-time job. I have kids. I have, all these things I'm doing. I'm just, you know what? I'm really, really busy. So I'm just going to stick to what I know. It's worked so far. IRS hasn't called me yet or anything like that. I'm willing to do all the work. That was kind of the flip side of that coin. I'm willing to do all of that work, but I don't know what to do or where to start. So I just don't. I just kind of, I don't know what to do. I genuinely will do it. I mean, if you'll tell me what to do, I'll do it, but I don't. There's so much. I had no idea that there was so much, and I don't even know where to begin. So I'm just not going to. And then going back to my ongoing throughout my life nemesis of the procrastination paralysis, I have no clue of what to do or how to do it. So I won't even try. And this is a bit different from number 2, because number 2 is kind of saying, I don't know what to do, but if you'll tell me, I'll do it. Whereas number 3 is more of a conscious decision of, I have no clue. So you know what? I'm not even going to bother trying. Nope. I'm just going to ignore everything everybody's telling me about, how I should be distributing to more than just Amazon. I should be doing Apple Books. Nope. I'm not going to do that. I don't know how. So I am choosing not to. So that's a little bit of the difference between the 2. So what happens if you continue to make this mistake about overwhelm? So we talked about how the industry is always changing, constantly changing. We always hear about, oh, Amazon has changed their, their system again, and you have to now do this thing and that thing, or else you're not going to sell anything on Amazon. There's some truth to it, but for the most part, a lot of when people talk about things like that, like, oh, you have to know, like they just changed the algorithm. That could be true and that could affect you, but a lot of it's just common sense. That being said, back in 2014, when you were launching your book, the conventional wisdom was that you should do kind of like a drip advertising that you had published this book. So you publish it on day one, you pick whichever one of your biggest, where's your biggest crowd? Is it your email distribution list? Is it Twitter? Is it Facebook? What is it? So on day one, you would tell all of those people. And then on day two, you would tell your next biggest social media. And on day three, and so you would just kind of like drag it out like that. And in 2014, that worked. That was kind of how it worked, especially with Amazon's algorithm. It's not like that anymore. As of more so last year, not as much this year, the algorithm has changed to where you need to come in with a bang. Like you need to come in on your first day and just bang, have those sales, have people putting up reviews, make a big impression. Because if you don't manage to get that bang until like your third or fourth or fifth or 2 weeks later, then you're just going to be fighting an uphill battle. So you do need to at least have a finger on the pulse of the industry. Any industry is always changing. This is not just publishing. Any industry at all is constantly changing, and you do need to change with it, or you're going to be one of those people who is like, well, it worked for me back in 2009. Great. I'm glad it did. I'm happy. But guess what? It doesn't work anymore. Change, growth, and adaptation is an important part of any business. You need to be flexible. You need to be willing to adapt. If you are inflexible, you are only going to hurt yourself. Yes, you have worked your butt off to get to where you are. Yes, it has been pretty successful for you, but clinging to that and refusing to change your business model, that's only going to hurt you. Think about how books were sold, let's even just say 20 years ago. You had to have an agent and a publishing house and a contract with that publishing house. And now we are seeing where big name established authors are leaving their publishing houses because they're saying, I have the audience. I can just go do this on my own and keep more of the money myself. Bye. So that's how much the industry has changed in just 20 years, and just specifically our industry. And then third, if you never get started, you're never going to achieve your goals because they don't happen on their own. All week, I have been posting tips on my Instagram. I love doing this on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I do encourage you to do so. I love interacting with people on Instagram. And I've been putting out tips all week on just very specific tips about things that you can do to help yourself, help your brand, help your sales, help your writing, that sort of thing. And the number one piece of advice that I put on there that has sometimes gotten people's backs up a little bit is, you wrote a book. Who cares? Nobody cares. Nobody cares that you wrote a book unless you already have an established audience or you're famous or something like that. It's up to you to make people care and make people want to go buy your book. Just by virtue of writing and publishing a book does not mean anything. And as proof of that, my husband, who is my number one supporter, carries around my business cards in his wallet, hands them out whenever anybody even seems remotely interested in reading anything. He has only read half of one of my books, and the book's a novella. So it's not even a full-length novel. He's read half of the first novella. And it's just because he's not a reader. That's not his jam. It's not what he enjoys doing. And so if I can't count on my own spouse or partner to buy or read my books, then why should I expect that strangers are just going to take it upon themselves to buy my books and get me to those goals? You get yourself to those goals. You are going to be making people want to buy your books. This is not going to happen on its own. So when people tell me in a coach aspect, I want to be like, not the same necessarily genre, but I want to be the next 50 Shades of Grey. That was like an overnight success. I mean, that was crazy. Just literally one day, all of a sudden, boom, this book blew up. No, that's actually not true at all. That if you look into the history of it, She had started writing that almost at least 2 years prior, when she did take the book to a small print. She brought a huge, huge pack of fans that followed her over from the fan fiction because it originated as a Twilight fan fiction. She brought them over with her. And they were the ones who started this social proof and started telling people, and that's how they got that ball rolling. So 50 Shades of Grey, when people tell me that, I'm like, that's not an overnight success. Plus, the author actually works in the industry. And so she knew exactly what to do. Things are exceptionally rarely going to happen without you making them happen. So what's going to happen when you stop making that mistake? So I think we've probably all heard the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So it's the exact same with being a professional author. You're not going to dive in this weekend and then come out on Monday a professional author. You're going to really sit down and say, you know what? What can I realistically work on right now? What is something that I need to work on, but it can wait a little bit. I haven't even finished writing the book, so I don't need a book cover right this second. What's something that you know is never going to happen? And really prioritize it, address all of those things that you need to address as a business, but also being realistic for yourself is, what can I do today? That was another tip that I put on my Instagram and said, you need to do something active every single day. Every single day, you need to do at least one thing to actively promote your book. Because again, unless you're paying a publicist or someone like that, nobody else is going to do it for you. You need to be the force behind that. If you break your project down with proper planning, then that's you're already ahead of the game. Now, if you've already published books and you're thinking, oh crap, I kind of really wish I'd known this like 5 years ago, that's fine. You have more books inside of you and you can go back and retroactively apply some of this advice. But breaking the project down with proper planning, if I knew, okay, this is what right now Amazon's algorithm looks for when it comes to really, knocking me up into the ranking and getting me into the top 100 and that sort of thing, you can plan for it. If you haven't even written a book, or maybe you've just started writing it, that's okay. You're really ahead of the game, because when you do publish that book, you're going to have a ready-made system and a ready-made group of people that are waiting and excited to read your book. And you can do this if you've already published as well. If you're going to publish more, then go ahead and plan for the publication of that next one, so that you're not having to constantly try and every day kick it in the butt to like, okay, it came out a week ago and I've only sold like 10 copies. Instead, plan in advance. And then the third one is just when you sit down and you look, and not even to just only make it about money or make it about sales, but being able to look at and see what you have done. When you are able to see the first review that you get on a book that you've been working on so incredibly hard, that is an incredible confidence booster, which actually pays back dividends into yourself as a professional author, because you can look back and say, I did it. I did it. I did it. I mean, I did all these things just because, Kate kind of told me to. And I was like, all right, Kate, I'm going to take you on your word. This is important. But it worked. Holy crap. Whoa, I just opened up my KDP, my Amazon dashboard, and I sold 500 copies of my book today. Oh my God. And that is, again, it's an incredible confidence booster that will keep you going on days when you just want to, be the tortured artist and just, throw it in the fire and everything like that. But again, you are validating yourself to you and to others that you are a professional. This is just a testimonial from one of the people who went through the beta launch of the actual full class, not just the master class, but the full course of the author iceberg. Pam Fisher, she said, this program is excellent, super informative. I learned so much about what I had not even thought of when it came to writing my book, which is still in its beginning phases still. So she hasn't even finished writing it. Kate is beyond knowledgeable and shares so much and helpful and useful information. I would recommend this course to anybody who's thinking about writing a book. So again, if you haven't finished, if you haven't even started, that's okay. Lay that groundwork now. So when publication day comes, there's literally an audience waiting to buy your book and leave you wonderful reviews. So here is your action item number 2 for overwhelm. Again, not right this second, but you're going to set a timer for 10 minutes and you are going to do another brain dump. You are going to list out anything and everything that you think that you'll need to do or have on your path to just becoming a professional author. And then when I wrote this, literally just did a brain dump. I was like, well, what are some things that people might say, oh, I'm going to need to have that? An editor, business cards, a tax attorney, time to write. We all need more time to write. Something to write with. My laptop is about to die, so I kind of need a new one. A separate bank account, a website, fans. Fans, definitely a good thing. An agent, 36 hours in the day, a new keyboard, a quiet place to work, an accountability group. I want to buy Scribner. I need to get a DBA, a doing business as, so that I can actually have like a legal entity, seed money so that I can invest that in the business, and on and on and on and on and on and on. And just don't judge yourself. Just don't say, why in the heck would I need an agent? If that popped into your head, just write it down. Because if maybe down the road, your goal is to have your book made into a movie, then you're probably going to want to have an agent that represents you. If that sounds like way too, like not even in the realm of something that could happen to you, if you haven't heard of it yet, there is a streaming service called Passionflix, which actually is nothing but movies that have been created from romance novels and recent ones. So they did one, for example, Alessandra Torre's Hollywood Dirt was one of them. Authors who, they're not Stephen King, but they're doing good for themselves. Honestly, they're people who know who they are in the romance genre, but they probably never thought that their books would be made into a movie until, with the way that achieving and accessing entertainment works now, there's an actual streaming service that is literally deliberately looking for romance novels. And I can pretty much guarantee you that none of those people who wrote those, when they wrote those books, thought that they were going to have their book turned into a movie, but it is. So anything that comes into your head, write it down. I don't care how crazy it is, because when you acknowledge all of these things, you write it down. It's almost like when you write it down, you're taking away its power of being able to overwhelm you, because now you know what you might need to tackle. So it's not just this huge, overwhelming, behemoth monolith. It's just a thing that I don't even know where to start with. You did start. You did this brain dump and you wrote it all down. And I definitely recommend either keep the list on your phone, if you're definitely one that keeps lists on your phone, or keep a notepad on your desk, next to your bed, next to your chair where you're sitting when you watch television. And as things pop into your head, jot it down. Just right then and there, go ahead and jot it down. And this isn't a to-do list. This is just really getting rid of the just unknown, where there's all these things. Oh, you know what? Oh, wow. Huh. You know what? Actually, now that I think about it, I do need an ergonomic mouse, because every time I go to write, my carpal tunnel flares up because I'm always like doing research first. And by the time I'm done clicking around the internet and I go to write, my carpal tunnel is bothering me. So you know what? Yeah, actually, I need one of those ergonomic mice, a mouse. So jot that down. What do you need to get you to that point? And the last mistake, number three, and this one goes a little bit hand in hand with number two. So, if you remember earlier, I mentioned that I did this survey and I said, hey, authors of the world, what is keeping you back? Why are you not just plunging into your dream of being a professional author? And again, there was a section that was just where free texting, they could write it out. And this was pretty much tied with overwhelm for the top reasons that people don't just jump in and say, all right, I'm going to do this crazy thing. This is not a hobby anymore. This is me. This is me being a professional and going after my dream and my goal of being a professional writer. So fear is real. That is a real thing. I still feel it, even though I've been an indie author, I've published these books, I still absolutely have this happen to me. Number one, imposter syndrome is it's a real thing. It really is. Where you may be thinking to yourself, who the heck who am I? Being a professional author, that's for people like, famous people, like Dean Koontz and Stephen King and Danielle Steele and people. Those are the professionals. I'm just like this person that's written a book. The thing about imposter syndrome is that technically, the definition is you're afraid that you're going to be exposed as a fraud. You, on the other hand, aren't a fraud. You are an author. You are a writer. So that's what I tell myself to take the teeth out of that imposter syndrome. I'm not a fraud. I have written these books. Are they going to be everybody's cup of tea? Heck no. But are some people going to really like them? Heck yeah. And so that's what I tell myself. Yes, imposter syndrome is real. I can acknowledge that. But there's always going to be someone out there who is going to love what I have written. And you never know. That person may be best friends with or related to somebody with a lot of money or resources. So I mentioned earlier Passionflix, the streaming service that is set up for romance novels. That was actually, it's set up and run by Tosca Musk, who is Elon Musk's sister. And so, yeah, she definitely has the connections. So I would definitely maybe make sure you have an elevator pitch planned. You never know who you're going to come across. There's always going to be somebody out there that loves what you have done. Fear also comes in ways that, yeah, they kind of could be a realistic fear. What if I do something wrong? What if I accidentally plagiarize something because I forgot that I read it and it was stuck in my head and I typed it out, or even if I didn't plagiarize it, somebody's accusing me of plagiarizing it. What if the IRS comes after me? Oh my God, the IRS is going to come. They're going to throw me in jail. They're going to throw me in. No, they're not going to throw you in jail. What if someone sues me? What if somebody says, that was my idea and I wrote that like 10 years ago. I'm suing you now. Those are realistic fears, but you can't live with those every day and let those hold you back. If you let those hold you back, then you're never going to really achieve that goal. Another aspect of fear is just that there's so much of me in my work. I'm afraid to open myself up for that criticism and to say, well, again, going back to authors who maybe write, I'm just off the top of my head, space fantasies, about aliens doing all kinds of, fun, kinky stuff, whatever it is. And they don't want people to, especially, maybe coworkers or family members or something like that, to necessarily see that and judge them. Or maybe it's just because they've bared their soul so much in this book. Maybe it's a book about, like, for example, when Brooke Shields wrote a book about postpartum depression and things like that, where you've bared your soul to the point that this book is cracking your heart and your soul open. And anyone that really takes a swing at that is just going to be shattering. So those are real. I don't ever want to tell people, oh, don't be afraid of that. I don't like telling people how to feel because that's pretty rude and presumptive of me. But you can absolutely acknowledge that this is what your fear is and how am I going to handle it. So, what happens if you keep making this mistake if you do not address your fears? Well, imposter syndrome is not going to go away on its own. It's one of those things that's kind of malignant and it just sits there. And the more you try and ignore it and throw things on top of it so you can't see it, and the worse and the bigger and the more it gets. That doesn't just go away where one day you wake up in the morning and you're like, I have written in my world the greatest book ever. I'm honestly, I'm a great author. This is going to sell. This is awesome. I mean, that would be wonderful if that was a confidence serum that we could, hand out to everybody, because I'd certainly take it, but it's never going to go away on its own. When you make choices based on fear of the known and the unknown, that's very unhealthy. And it's not just for your business, because your business will suffer if you are making all of your decisions based on, oh, I don't really want to do that because maybe somebody will sue me over that. That's not good for your business. This is also not good for you as a human being, where you're in this constant state of anxiety or not growing or just constantly thinking, well, what if? That is not healthy for you to live your life and also make your life and professional decisions based on fear. And then finally, at some point, you're going to miss those opportunities and you're going to look back and say, what if? What if I had actually done that? Where when, Bob's friend's cousin's mother-in-law, she's a screenwriter in Hollywood, and somehow, she heard through, our tenuous 6 degrees or whatever of separation that I was writing this, and she's, oh, well, tell her to send it my way. And I didn't do it because, she was just being polite. She was just, she doesn't know me. Who am I? I'm nobody. I barely sold anything. And so you never do it. And then later down the road, maybe years after that, you will either yourself recognize it, or maybe you run into her or somebody who knows her and they're like, oh yeah, you know what, she actually mentioned, I remember her talking about that she was really bummed that you never sent that in, because the trend at that time actually was for that genre, and she was kind of wished, I wish I'd known that you hadn't reached out to her, because I would have given her your contact information. So don't do that to yourself. You don't ever want to look back and have those regrets that came about because it was a decision that was made from fear. So if you stop making this mistake, just know that knowledge is both power and empowering, and you're going to be able to advocate for yourself and for your business. And being able to advocate for yourself is one of the greatest feelings in the world, where if you have somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, but they sure really confidently think that they do, and they're saying that, oh, nobody can be like, sell any kind of books unless you have an agent, you can say, well, actually, I don't have an agent and I'm doing pretty good. I was able to quit my full-time job last year. Oh, God, that would be the best feeling in the world, to just shut somebody down like that. That's kind of like the ultimate dream right now. But even like smaller versions of that, being able to advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself, greatest feeling in the world. You're also going to be able to channel fear into excitement and enthusiasm. So I do pretty much every single day. My day job and my job as a professional author and coach involves public speaking. And it's just second nature to me now. And I've had people tell me, you are so lucky that you just, you have no problem with public speaking. You're just so calm and excited, but your point, this, that, the other thing. I'm like, no, that's not luck. I've worked really, really hard to be able to do that. And the way that I've done that is to take those butterflies that we all feel when we're making a big decision about to, click, publish or something like that. You just learn how to channel those butterflies. Instead of being scary butterflies, they're excited butterflies. And that just lifts you up and just gets you going. And your excitement and your enthusiasm becomes contagious. And other people, that's how, when I mentioned earlier, that's how you make people care that you wrote a book. And that's how you make people want to buy and to read your book and to share it with others and to write reviews. And to that point, you're going to open up a whole entire, not just a world, a universe of opportunities if fear isn't holding you back. Just imagine what you could do if the only thing that's holding you back is just fear. There's nothing else. It's just that you're scared to do it. So Jen is someone else who sent me an Instagram comment, and this is again right to the point. She said, I just won a writing contest and was super anxious about sharing the news. What do people think I'm bragging or I'm too focused on myself? But a good friend encouraged me to share the news, and the outpouring of support was so wonderful and humbling. People need good news now and always. I love that last sentence that she wrote. People need good news now and always. And people were thrilled for her. People were so supportive of her. And that just builds on itself until it's almost like, a boulder rolling downhill, just kind of picking up speed and momentum as it goes. So here's your fear action item. And this is where you are taking control and you are taking the teeth out of the fear. So your action item is not right this second, but maybe this weekend or sometime soon, you're going to set a timer for 5 minutes. This time you're going to do it for 5 minutes, and you're going to write a list. Just be brutally honest with yourself. What are the things that are scaring you? What is frightening you that's holding you back from taking the steps that you need to do to be a professional? And these are all personal to you. So even if you're thinking to yourself, because you're already building it up in your mind that, oh, people are going to think this is silly, people are going to think this is dumb, who cares? Nobody else is going to see this list except for you. So if your fear is that your coworkers are going to find out that you write erotica, then write that down. That's a legit fear that some people have, that they work in a very, very, very traditional day job, and that as horrible as it is to say, that if their coworkers found out about it, that could be detrimental to their career. So you put down whatever is personal to you. We're taking the teeth out of that. So for 5 minutes, write down, just truly look into your soul and just be honest with yourself and saying, what are the reasons? What am I scared of? Okay, let's just be honest. What am I scared of? Truly. After the timer goes off for your 5 minutes, where you've written this list, again, that free association, set the timer for another 5 minutes. And preferably you're going to have done your first list in list form. And so now you're going to set your timer for another 5 minutes. And next to every single fear, you're going to jot down the absolute most horrible thing in the entire world that could ever happen if this fear comes true. Be absolutely just over the top, catastrophic, that what's the worst that could happen. So when I have trained people on talking, so for example, like at book festivals, where some people are just very, very shy, and they're scared to death to talk to people, I will sometimes tell them, what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen if you smile and say hello at somebody who's walking by? That they're going to laugh at you, that they're going to sneer at you, that they're going to ignore you? What is it? What is that fear? When I've worked with people who are afraid to talk to strangers over the phone, like if they're making a call out regarding signing up for something, or there was an agent that would, put their information out there or something like that, and they're scared to death to pick up the phone, I would say, what's the worst that can happen? That person can't come through the phone like Freddy Krueger. Like they can't come through Nightmare on Elm Street style, like Freddy Krueger, through that phone. What is the worst thing that could happen? Probably that they'll just hang up on you. That's it. So just write down next to every single one of those fears, what's the worst thing that could happen? Or what is it about that specific fear that you genuinely think is going to happen? And again, it can be a valid fear. It doesn't have to be me and my, crazy Freddy Krueger example. It could be anything from you're afraid of putting money into something when maybe money is a bit short, especially right now, to embarrassment. I don't want my friends, my coworkers to, read the books I write, to jail time. I'm just going to, whatever that might be, I'm not even going to try and think of an example, to furthering that imposter syndrome or feeling like a fraud, but just only have one outcome for each of those fears and make it the worst. Like literally just one, what is the worst thing that could happen? The single worst thing that could happen if you do this thing. Only one for each fear that you've listed out. Because acknowledging what you're afraid of is going to be the first step to managing that fear. You're acknowledging it. You're taking away some of its power because you've written it down. You've acknowledged it. And again, the fear might be a reality. It absolutely could be something where, you're afraid to invest in something, right now in new writing software or something because maybe your day job, it's a little tenuous right now, and the budget's tight and everything like that. So it could be a very, very valid fear. I'm not telling you that it's not, but you've acknowledged it. And now that you've acknowledged it, you know that you need to work on addressing it. So we've identified it, you've acknowledged it, and now you know what you need to work on. So you've got your 3 action items. And at this point, you're probably thinking, all right, I need to know what I need to stop doing, but what do I do instead? So right now, I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of the entire course. It's called the author iceberg because an iceberg, so much of it is underwater. And with authors, you really just kind of see their book. You might see the author on the back of the book or something like that, or maybe you meet them or something like that. But everything that we do, not even just counting the writing that we do, is business related. And people tend to just think, oh, business equals taxes, marketing, advertising. No, actually, it's a whole, this whole thing that you can't even see, while serenely above the waves, this beautiful, lovely iceberg is floating along for everyone's enjoyment. And nobody has any idea of the huge amount that is actually supporting this beautiful thing. And so that's why I called it the author iceberg. So it is a 4-step method of creating a solid and profitable author brand and business, getting your books in front of readers without spending tons of money, because that's never fun, hours of research. It's fun if you're a weirdo like me, but most people don't like research, or nonstop frustration. And I'm pretty much going to tell you just an overview of what it is. There is already a beta class that has gone through and has taken this, and I have also done it one-on-one with authors to just really, what's the ultimate goal? Yeah, to sell more books, but that's getting you to your true ultimate goal, whatever that is. It's made up of 4 steps, and those are mindset, legal setup, brand presence, and goals and plans. So mindset, what is it? Well, it's where you're defining yourself. You are in charge of your growth and your change, and you are responsible for your business for better and for worse. Remember how I said, if you're not taking yourself seriously, if you're not treating yourself as a business, why should anyone else? Why is it important? You need to set those expectations, like I just said, of how others perceive and work with you. No one, unless you're paying them ungodly sums of money, is going to care more or care enough about your writing to make it a success. This is your baby. Nobody knows more about it than you do, and probably nobody cares more about it, even though they may care a lot, than you do. And the buck stops with you. That's the great and horrible thing about being the boss, is the buck stops with you. When you start working on your mindset, so this goes back to some of the things we talked about earlier, others are going to treat you with professional respect. You're going to get a greater sense of confidence and appreciation for yourself, including advocacy. Remember, advocating for yourself. You are going to be able to affect change rather than just passively letting these changes kind of happen to you. Nope, you are the one that is causing the ripples in the water, as opposed to the ripples just coming and capsizing your boat. So why will most people not want to address this? Because number one, they're stuck in imposter syndrome and having a pity party for themselves. Number two, they're unwilling to change. They're very stuck in their ways. Or maybe they don't understand why a mindset shift is so incredibly important. Jane Porter, who is a best-selling author, I love this quote of hers. There are no victims in our industry. You get out of it what you put into it. Some of it's going to be luck, but 99% of it's going to be just hard work, to be perfectly blunt. Number two of the author iceberg is the legal setup. We would not be able to genuinely talk about being successful without, getting into the nitty gritty and getting into the numbers. So the second step of the author iceberg is just the legal setup. How do you define yourself as a business entity? So I am defining myself as the owner of an LLC, of Twin Type Books LLC. Why are you a business if you only, quote unquote, sell books on the side? Well, there's an easy answer for that, because Amazon's going to send a 1099. And so you might want to go ahead and acknowledge that before they come asking you why you didn't acknowledge it. And again, you have to take yourself seriously if you want other people to as well. So why is having a good, solid legal setup important? Because of accounting, taxes, and then authority and trustworthiness. The fact that I have an LLC, there is a credit union that a long time ago, I was looking into maybe getting an account there. And I was looking at the different business accounts they had, and they actually would not set up a business account for a sole proprietorship, even though that is, and again, I keep saying in the US because that's where I am, and so that's what I know, that is a completely valid business, but they would not extend a business account to a sole proprietorship. And so is that right? I don't think so, but that was their rule. But the fact now that I have an LLC, that shows that I'm taking myself very seriously enough to pay for that LLC every year, because I have to pay for that every single year. When you establish it, you're going to be able to participate and have membership in professional business organizations. Doing it right as soon as possible, whether you're just starting out or you're like, whoop, okay, I need to start on this before I publish the next book. It's always going to be easier and better than just trying to fix it later. Do it right the first time, because that's always going to be easier than trying to fix what screwed up afterwards. And then you're going to have those knowledge and resources to grow your business. Uncle Sam is not going to show up with his credit card at Best Buy and buy your laptop for you, but you will know if you can afford to buy a new laptop, which you can then write off as a business expense the next year. This is the one that people tend to want to avoid or do last, or just kind of completely not do at all. But it's easier than you think. And this is really when you come back to that, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You're not just going to plunge into this weekend and come out on Monday with a business plan written and your complete legal setup completely done. You do it one step at a time. But the good thing about this program is we go over, well, what are those steps that you do need to do? So why aren't most people going to do it? Because it sounds hard. Business equals hard. Nope, not going to do that. That's scary. I hate numbers. Don't want to have anything to do with it. And you know what? I'm not that big of a deal. I only sell I don't know, maybe 20 books a year. So why do I need to do all this stuff? That's for big authors. Carol Topp, she has actually written a book that I absolutely love. It's called Business Tips and Taxes for Writers. And she has this great quote in it where she says, writers do not like dealing with taxes. Ain't that the truth? Who does? But the best way to reduce your tax burden is to take every deduction you are allowed. Well, you can't really take them unless you know which ones to take. And if you're like me, who has to kind of be sometimes handheld through taxes, that's why I specifically went looking for someone who's specialized in small businesses, because they do know where to look. They know which deductions to take. The next one, step number 3, is brand presence. So that's the face and reputation of your business. It's a consistent theme that ties all parts of your business together across all media. And that is you establishing yourself to your readers. So if someone just pulls one of my books off the shelf of this latest series, they know they're getting a female-led spy thriller. That is my brand for what I write right now. They know what to expect from me. So why is it important? They know what I'm good at. I'm good at writing strong female-led spy thrillers. And so I don't have to convince them of that. I've already established that, in that my lead magnet has not come off of Amazon's top 100 free espionage novels. It has not come off that list for over a year. It has always been in the top 100 because I have established this is what you're going to get. I do it well. I think you're going to like it. That leads into establishing know, like, and trust, which is a huge, huge part of selling anything and everything. You may have heard know, like, and trust in other areas of your life. You want somebody to know, like, and trust you because that's going to lead to really great things. It's going to tie your work to readers' enjoyment, entertainment, and emotions. When we're in the business of writing, I think, unfortunately, sometimes people, when I ask them, what value are you providing to your readers? And they're like, well, nothing. It's just like a book. It's about spy thrillers. Well, is it like escapism? Is it fun to read? Well, yeah, it's fun to read. Well, especially right now, people want to have a little bit of escapism. They want to read something to just get away from real life right now. And so if you are providing escapism and entertainment or laughs or whatever it is, that is value. Don't ever, ever undervalue that. What happens when you really establish your brand presence? It's going to lead to brand loyalty, where people are lining up and pre-ordering your books. Like, here, take my credit card. Just here, whenever you come out with your next book, just send me the book and a bill and I'll pay it. You'll definitely establish a solid group of dedicated readers, followers, and supporters. I have a street team that I just love and adore. They are absolutely wonderful, and they are the solid group of fans that I trust the most to send out my advanced reader copies to. They are the ones that I know will spread the word, talk about it, recommend it to people. They'll have their reviews up on publication day, and that's because I've established that brand and pulled together this group of people who enjoy what I do. And down the road, because you've done all this, you can be approached for more things outside of just writing. So going back to, hey, don't discount your book being made into a movie. Think of all of the authors, probably, I guess, one that pops into my head right away, J.K. Rowling or Stephanie Meyer. I don't think they started writing with, I am writing this so that it gets made into a movie. But what happened? Well, Harry Potter and Twilight happened. And so just keep that in mind. When you've got that brand loyalty and people out there tooting your horn, those opportunities are going to come your way more frequently. Now, why aren't most people going to do it? Well, because they have zero understanding of what their brand even is, or the concept of a brand just seems like that's like business. Like businesses have brands and logos and stuff like that. I don't need that. Yes, you do. Or you just genuinely going back to that overwhelm. I have no clue. I don't even know where to start, how to define, establish, and build my brand. So that is very much a part of the course, is going through and building your brand. This quote always just cracks me up. Mike Loomis said, aspiring authors are almost always nervous about their brand. The best writers are usually the worst marketers and can't stand self-promotion. How true is that? Seriously, guys. But marketing is part of the business of writing. It's okay to be scared, but don't have a scared website, self-defeating bio, and crummy photos. Preach. And then finally, step number 4, goals and plans. What does that mean? SMART goals are essential to moving ahead. You've probably done SMART goals in other areas of your life. You need to have very, very specific goals that you can track to get ahead. Otherwise, you're just kind of on a treadmill. You're running, but you're not really going anywhere. A business plan is going to keep you on track and measure your progress. And I am not just saying this, business plans are actually easier than you might think, especially if you have just a plug-in one, which I have developed, where here, do these exercises, and at the end of it, looky there, you wrote your business plan and you didn't even know it. And it is also, when you have goals and plans, you're going to have a very clear roadmap and a list of to-dos to follow. You know what you need to do to get from here to there. So why is it important? Like I just said, without knowing where you want to go and how you're going to get there, you can't expect to arrive. So if I were to go out to the garage right now and say, I'm going to drive myself to Carbondale, Illinois. I don't know where it is. I know it's in like Southern Illinois somewhere, but I have no clue exactly where or how to get there. I'm probably not going to arrive in Carbondale, Illinois. So that's why it is so important to know where you're going and how you're going to get there. When you do have an official business plan, which again, it's easier than you might think, I promise you. It shows potential partners, lenders, small business loans, and so on and so forth, that you are trustworthy and you are a good investment. You walked in there, you had your business plan, you said, this is what I need this loan for, as opposed to somebody who's like, can you give me some money so I can like buy a laptop? And then it's also going to establish what you need to do to ensure a future as a professional writer. I'm assuming that this is a lifelong goal for you, that you would love to retire and do that, or do that starting now throughout the rest of your life, whatever the case may be. You need to set up that solid foundation right now, just like you contribute to a 401k, so that later down the road, you don't have to keep working because you've established a good, strong foundation for yourself. So what happens when you start working on these? Your hopes and wishes become realistic and achievable. You will have an actual measure of your progress where you can look back 5 years and say, wow, 5 years ago, my goal was to sell 50 books in a year. And this year, my goal was to sell 5,000, but I sold 7,000. It's beautiful to be able to look back and see that progress that you have made. And now you have those steps to follow. You know where to start. You know what you need to do, instead of just kind of falling back to that overwhelm or that fear paralysis of, I don't know what to do. It's too big. I just don't even know where to start. So I'm not going to. Why will most people not do it? Because they are artistes. I want to write. I don't want to do SMART goals. SMART goals is for corporate jobs. I don't want to do business plans. That doesn't sound fun. I just want to write. Well, so do I. But if I want to live off of it, I need to, have a plan and goals and that sort of thing. Maybe people are just kind of winging it, hoping for the best. If I were to ask you, how many books would you like to sell this year? Well, as many as I can. Yeah, me too. But like, what's your goal? Like, what is your goal that you're aiming for? If you exceed it, great. But what are you aiming for? And every day doing something to hit that goal, as opposed to just, hey, as many as I can sell, that'd be awesome. Or maybe people are afraid that what they truly want isn't realistic or achievable. So kind of inching back towards that imposter syndrome, and that planning will only be a waste of time. So if my goal in my heart, I want to sell 1,000 books in 2021, but I don't think I can. So why should I even bother writing all this down? It's not going to happen. So why should I even bother doing all of that? Quote from Brittany Goodwin: "It's easy to treat your passion for writing as a hobby or a favorite pastime, but once you view it as a career as well, it will become all about investing in yourself and your talent. Nothing about it will be easy, but putting in the hard work will ultimately make your goals attainable." That is so true. Nothing about it is going to be easy unless, like I've mentioned a couple of times before, you have unlimited sums of money to pay other people to do these things for you, in which case you're probably not in this masterclass right now. So what we've learned so far tonight, the top 3 mistakes that I include myself here, make in business as authors and writers, how the author iceberg starting with this masterclass, and then if you do choose to continue with the full course, how those are going to be addressed, and why you don't need a business degree to be a professional author or writer. I get that question sometimes where they're like, well, you don't have an MBA? No, I have a lot of experience and a lot of hard knocks and persistence. That's what I have right there. So you're here today because you want to be successful, profitable, secure, happy on the business side of things, while still being able to write. Don't ever forget why you're doing this. You want to be able to write and do what you love. You want a doable solution to what you know is necessary, but yes, it can be overwhelming and scary. You know you're a professional author or writer on the inside, and you are ready to make some changes on the outside. And so, guess what? That starts today. You showed up. You showed up today for this masterclass. You took notes. You wrote down what you needed to do. So, you have already started today. You may have already started some of these things, and maybe what I've talked about validated these things that you're already doing. That makes me so happy, because nothing that I talked about is, woo woo science or a theory or ideas. No, these are all things that I've done, that I've taught other people to do to achieve the business success that you need to support yourself as a professional author or writer. I don't have a CPA best friend. I do not have an MBA. I just put this together and it works for me. And that's why I love sharing it with other people. All right. So, real quick, I'm just going to go through the most common questions that I get. So, the first one, I haven't even finished or started my book yet. Shouldn't I wait? No, do it right now, because otherwise, when you hit your publication date, you're just out there scrapping and hoping and looking for people to buy it, as opposed to setting up this structure of people who are waiting for it to come out. They've got ARCs. You sent them advanced reader copies. They read it, and on publication date, they're going to go in and post their reviews. They're going to tell everybody about it. Why in the world would you want to start from basically zero on publication date when you can build up that structure in advance? Can't I find all this information on my own? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I am not going to say that, I am the sole holder of all of this knowledge. I just put a lot of it together on my own, and I am gifted with half of my brain is my creative writing brain, and the other half of my brain is a very cold, analytical business side of my brain, where I make very just black and white, no emotion decisions regarding business. So, can you find all this information on your own? Yes, and if you decide to do that, I will cheer you on the whole way. But if you do decide to continue in the course, then it's going to be already put together for you, as opposed to you having to learn it over. I've been doing it for the past 11 years. How can Kate guarantee that I'm going to outsell Stephen King by the end of next year? I can't. Kate can't guarantee that. I don't think anybody, including myself, is necessarily going to outsell Stephen King, but that's not the point. That's not my goal. My personal goals, I don't have a goal that says I want to outsell Stephen King. My goals are going to be, okay, based on what my history is in terms of sales, in terms of what I am forecasting, in terms of what I plan to do, in terms of investments that I plan to make. My goal is to sell 10,000 copies of all of my books combined, ebook and paperback, next year. That's a solid goal right there, as opposed to, well, Kate, aren't you going to make me like the next Stephen King? If I do, great, and I'll buy your books, but it's probably, not going to happen. Well, then what's the point? What exactly is a professional author or writer? It's someone who you have, whatever it is, that ultimate goal that you tie your identity to, that you are proud and excited to tell people when they ask what you do for a living. When people ask what I do for a living, I tell them in this order: I am a professional author and coach, and I also am a trainer. And that the trainer part is my day job, but in my mind, that's a smaller part of my identity. The much larger part of my identity is being a professional author and coach, and that is how I answer people. Well, what exactly is it? That's for you to answer. That is what my answer was, but you need to come up with your own answer. I still work full time, and/or I have other time-heavy obligations. Can I still do this? Yes, absolutely. Most authors and writers do still work full time. I was given a long time ago a rule of thumb, which I thought was brilliant, and I have clung to it and shared it with people ever since. And it was, if you want to quit your full-time job and just write full-time, then before you quit your day job, you need to be bringing in terms of income, 3 times what you make in your day job. And some people are like, so if my salary at my day job is $50,000, you're telling me I have to bring in $150,000 a year as an author. And I say, yeah, because if you're in the US, you may have to pay for your own health insurance. There's not going to be an employer who's matching 3 or 4% of your retirement account. Um, there's going to be self-employment taxes, which, oh, that sucks, but it's there. Um, Everybody is going to be unique. That is my goal. My goal that I have my eye on the prize is to make that 3 times what I make in my day job before I'm able to quit my day job. But most, even full-time writers like myself, view themselves as having 2 full-time jobs, a day job, and then when they're done with the day job, they work on their second job, which is being a professional author. You can do it. It's just a matter of carving out and identifying when you can do it. And that's another thing that we will talk about. Just let's brainstorm and let's scratch out those little pockets of time. If you get up 30 minutes earlier, in the morning, then that right there is going to be an additional 2.5 hours that you can just sit and write. And I think I'm ready to do this, Kate. Do you? Yes, I do. If you showed up and you sat here the whole time listening to me talk, then yes, I think you're ready to do it. It might again have really brought to the forefront some of those things that are holding you back, the fear, overwhelm, and lack of identity. But if you showed up, that already has put you ahead of people who were like, well, I don't have time to be a professional author, or who am I? I'm not a professional. I just write books. Well, you're already 10 steps ahead of those people. Okay, I did my first 3 action items. I'm ready to take the next step, whatever that step may be. If you do have any questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to email me. I encourage you as well to not just maybe even stick to my 3 action items that I gave you. If it gets your brain working in certain pathways and ways that you're thinking of going and like, actually, that's something I never really thought of. And that makes me think of this other thing. Then go ahead and go for it. Go as far as you want, go as far as you know that you need to do, because again, if you showed up, you already are on the way. So thank you, everybody who was able to attend. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and we will talk again soon. Bye.